Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to be here. This is so amazing that you all are here on a Friday morning. So my name is Casey Lathrop, and as Matthew mentioned, I work in design operations and CIO design at IBM as a program manager. So what that means is a lot of things. I do everything from conducting user research to managing our design backlog to strategizing on new ways of working. And I like to think of myself as a workplace designer, because I am constantly using design to help improve the experience my team is having and making them more engaged and productive at work. What I love about my job is that I'm constantly challenged to improve and pull in skills from past roles, interests, and experiences inside and outside of work. So before taking on this role as a program manager, I was a user experience designer and researcher. I worked on a variety of projects. One of the projects was our IBM's internal homepage, which is used by over 350,000 people worldwide. And on that project, I worked as a researcher and I collected data on the IBMers' needs and pain points in order to redesign the site effectively. I also worked on a project called CIO TV. CIO stands for Chief Information Office. And what that means is we're essentially the IT department at IBM. Our mission at the CIO is to provide a more productive experience for IBMers. And we do that by creating, updating, and standardizing the tools that IBMers are using on a daily basis. So CIO TV was launched as a way to communicate the changes that we're experiencing and providing for IBMers. And I started on that project as a user researcher, and I eventually became an animator. But for this talk, I'm not going to really be talking about what I do today. What I'm really going to be focusing on is how I got here. And the reason for this is an actual video of me, and the reason for this is I have a feeling that a lot of you sitting here today might be feeling some kind of pressure. That pressure may be coming from your parents, from your teachers, from your friends, and from yourselves. If you're currently in college, you might be worried about what you're going to major in, what you're going to do next, how your portfolio is coming along, where you're going to apply to jobs. If you're in high school or you're in middle school, you might be worried about your grades, exams that you need to take, where you're going to go to college, and all those things. And it feels like you're being asked to make really big decisions right now that could impact the rest of your lives, your future careers, and everything that you do. And although I don't expect to relieve all of your overwhelming anxiety and all those feelings in this 15 minutes that I have, but I want you to know that you're not alone. And I was once in your shoes, and I completely empathize with that. So it's easy to think that there's one straight line to get where you want. If you get good grades, you go to college, you graduate, you get a job that pays well and is super fulfilling, and it's amazing, and then at the end, you reach this gold star, and life is wonderful. And sure, that could happen, but the reality is that it might not, and that's okay. And that really has nothing to do with your skills or your ambition, but it has a lot to do with how fast technology is changing and how much industries are changing all the time. And if you would have asked me what I'd be doing 10 years ago, let alone 5, I would never have guessed that I'd be working in design operations at IBM. And so today I'm going to argue that journeys are not linear, and I don't think they should be. And I think that we should celebrate everything that we go through. And so if you leave college in the next couple years and you find yourself in a job that you don't like, you always know that you can come back and change something. So in order to really talk about my journey, I'm going to take you guys back to the beginning. So if you hear my job title as a program manager, I work in design operations, I do strategy. And if you know that I was a UX designer, a researcher, you might assume a few things. Maybe you think that I studied business or marketing. Maybe I have a background in operations. Maybe you think that because I was a designer, I studied design in school. And you might think that I always knew what I wanted to do. But I did not. And when I was in college, I studied Spanish and English linguistics, the traditional path to design, obviously. And I studied at DePaul University, and I had a minor in community service studies. And that led me to teaching. So for the first 5 years of my career, I was an English teacher. And teaching came about from my passion for linguistics, communication, and ultimately helping people find their voices. I started by teaching one class just from college credit, and that led to teaching all around the world, and I eventually ended up in New York. So after teaching in New York in both private and public schools, what I really started to notice is the disparity between how fast kids were learning technology and how little technology was actually implemented in classrooms. And I included this infographic from PBS, and it's actually from 2013, around the same time I started to think about this. Because what you can see here is that it's not that teachers are not aware that there's a need and an importance to implementing technology in classrooms. It's that teachers don't always have the choice of doing that. There's a lot of other red tape that comes with that. And then I included this beautiful meme that I hope you enjoy, because what you can also find is that you'll have super highly educated professors and teachers that are absolutely brilliant. But if they're not knowledgeable about new technologies, there can be a huge disconnect between what they're teaching themselves and their students. So I started to wonder, maybe I could make an impact in education in a different way through technology. So I decided to pursue a master's degree called the Interactive Telecommunications Program, or ITP, at New York University, and it's commonly known as the Center for the Recently Possible. Some say it's like an art school for engineers or an engineering school for artists, and the program allows students to explore emerging technologies, and it is known to be an intersection between art, design, and technology. So at ITP, I had the opportunity to bring my ideas to life, and it wasn't about the technology. It was about putting the story first. And even though I got to explore a lot of types of technology, from creative coding to VR to interaction design to animation, physical computing, wearable technology, what mattered the most is what I had to say, and the technology part came second. ITP has two main themes. The first is learn how to learn things. Technology is going to change. In 5 years, the technology that we're using today might be irrelevant. It might be irrelevant in fewer years. So it's important to be adaptable to change and understand how you yourself learn new things. The second is to fail fast and fail often, because that builds resilience. And how I was really able to practice these two things was through a class called 100 Days of Making, taught by Catherine Dillon. And this class is very untraditional that you would imagine, because it's a very independently owned by the students. So each student chooses a topic or a theme, and they are asked to iterate and create something new every day for 100 days. So I took this class, and I did 100 days of motion design and animation. I learned a lot of types of animation, from After Effects to CSS animation, SVG animation. I did some stuff in WebGL with 3JS, and I had an absolutely amazing experience. What I found was that I was building this immense creative confidence, and I started feeling like I can learn anything I want to learn. I love this process so much that since then I have done 5 other 100 days, from coding to drawing and animating monsters, and more recently to writing. I find this process so valuable that I've also brought it to my team at CIO Design, and I'm very lucky that our leaders really support that. And we're now in our 5th cycle of doing that as a group, and it's really been an amazing experience for that. And I also had the opportunity last spring to return to NYU as an adjunct professor and teach 100 days. So despite having this incredible experience through 100 days, I was still feeling incredibly anxious about what I do after ITP. I didn't enter thinking I would leave as a designer, because being a designer seemed nearly impossible to me. It honestly just scared me. I did not understand it. And if you saw the projects that I showed earlier, most of my projects were very physical and interactive, and none of them were visual or digital. And that's the only type of design I ever really knew about. I knew about software companies, hiring. I didn't think they were looking for anyone that knew how to make a superhero cape, so I didn't know what I was going to be doing.